Hi everyone, it's Carl here, trying to do my first video blog. So it's a little weird to be looking at a picture of myself talking, but I assure you it's not because I like looking at myself. It's just a lot easier to do it this way than to try and sit down and write something that I'm comfortable with, because it takes a lot more time on my part than just talking. So the first blog you'll see is titled Money. And I have a little discussion that I like to have with people, and many of you have had this with me before, about what money is. And, a lot of people don't think about that. They just take it for granted that money is good, and they'd like to have more of it. And, when you have money, you can buy stuff, and that makes life better. But anyhow, this will probably be done in at least two parts. And the first part will be just a discussion about what money is, why we have it. And honestly, a lot of people don't know about this, and I didn't even know anything or even think about this up until about 2 years ago. So, without further delay, I'm going to try to explain to you what money is by use of an anecdote. So, let's take a mental journey back in time to, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. And let's suppose that we're in a small village, and I raise chickens, and my next door neighbor is a farmer who grows wheat and makes bread, okay? And then another person down the road makes shoes from, I don't know, cows or whatever animal he can find to make shoes from, and so on and so forth. So this is a time that people had actual productive jobs where they did things, they produced things by the sweat of their brow to make a living, to survive. So let's think about this. Suppose I am raising chickens. I make eggs and such. I don't make them. The chickens make them. But anyhow, um, let's say I want to work out a deal with my neighbor to get bread. Okay, I might go one day and say, "Hey, I'll give you a dozen eggs for a couple loaves of bread." And my neighbor might say, "Hey, that sounds fine. Okay, let's do that." Now, that's fine, but let's say I want to have bread every week, and all I do is raise chickens. So I go to my neighbor and say, "Hey, you know, I'd like to buy bread from you every week, and I'll trade you, half a dozen eggs every week for a loaf of bread." And my neighbor says, "Well, I use about 2 or 3 eggs a week for my own personal use." Okay, maybe this isn't a great analogy because uh, eggs may be used in the production of bread in this case, but ignore that. We're just thinking about eggs for bread here. So anyhow, my neighbor says, I don't really need that many eggs for my personal use. So I'm stuck because all I do is chickens and eggs, and he doesn't want the chickens either. All right. So now I need to get a third partner into this mix. So let's say, okay, I go to the guy who makes shoes and say, "I'll trade you, you know, I'll raise chickens for you and sell you a chicken a month for a pair of shoes every other month, which you can trade every other pair of shoes to my neighbor who produces bread." And so we'll work out this transaction. And he says, "Okay." And then I go to the guy who makes bread, and he says, "Well, I don't really need that many pairs of shoes." So I think you get the point here. The barter system makes sense in the sense that people are trading things that are actually valuable that they need for other things, yet they are limited by their own personal needs and what they can produce. So it works, but it's not very efficient. And like I said, if all you do is eggs, and that's all you can trade, you know, not everyone's going to want your eggs for what they produce. So it's not really going to work out that well, right? So, you know, there are other things that could work to trade, all right? And lots of things have been used throughout history. We could even use things like ammunition, okay? Suppose everyone needs bullets because there are always, thugs going around and looting the place. Bullets might work, okay? People have used things like feathers, tobacco, stones throughout history. But the most common form of money that people have used are precious metals. So things like this silver here, for example, coins made of silver, or this paper money, like this US dollar that everyone knows and loves, right? So lots of things could work, but typically it's either the coin or the paper. We use, of course, worthless coins, worthless money these days for the time being. So I'd like to touch upon the main point of why I did this particular installment of the blog about just what money is. Okay, why do people use gold or silver or paper money as we do currently? Why do they use such a thing for a medium of exchange? And the answer is basically two things. Okay, why is a certain medium of exchange agreed upon? The first thing is it is by agreement. So basically, people in a certain culture or society decide that this gold or silver or even paper money, although it's usually not by agreement that paper money is used. But anyhow, it's by agreement. This society decides we will use this for money. So there's a kind of trust that's built into that, right? People say, okay, I will accept this for, my chickens, which is a real thing, for, this silver, which is valuable, yet it is not useful in the sense that chickens or bread or shoes are valuable, right? Those things fulfill an immediate need. Silver is valuable, but it does not really fulfill immediate needs, okay? So people accept the silver or gold or paper money by agreement that, I will accept it for something of value, and then later on, I will trade that to someone else for something of immediate value. So I will trade the money I will trade my real thing for money, and later I will trade that money for another real thing that I need. Okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is that the person believes that money, whether it be precious metals or paper money or feathers, or what have you, they believe that money will be useful at a later date. So whatever they can buy with it today, in 1 or 2 years, they expect to be able to buy about the same amount of stuff with that money. So that is why money is used. It's more convenient. It is a useful thing, and it does make trade a lot more easy and convenient. And I do believe it is something that is given by God to mankind, the idea of money. But anyhow, that's about it for right now. Pretty soon here I'll try and get the second blog done, which is where I'll take a more devotional approach to the right perspective on money for Christians. Okay? So, hope you enjoyed this, and, leave a comment, and we'll try to pick it up here pretty soon. Okay? Thanks.